The living God is in this place, and you are not here to hear good music or to hear a sermon. You are here for an encounter with the living God, because he is the only one, that encounter, that can change our hearts. And that's our prayer for you. We've had a powerful day as God has moved Thursday. He's moved this morning, and we are praying that God would move today. And before we start, I want to tell you about a gentleman who really loved to ski. And if you're a member here in the house, not on our live stream, maybe you know about this. It was a powder day. It had just dumped that night, and the next morning was going to be fresh snow and clear skies, and he had plans. They all made plans, him and his buddies, to get together and go make first tracks. First tracks are a big deal. They were going to get there early Sunday morning, but this guy showed up 2 hours late. And his buddies were like, dude, what happened? And he said, well, as you know, it's Sunday morning. And I couldn't decide did God want me to go to church, or did God want me to come up here with you guys and go skiing? And so I decided I would flip a coin. Heads, I go to church. Tails, I go skiing with you guys. And they looked at each other and back to him, like, man, that should have taken like 5 seconds. He said, I know, but it took me 528 flips to finally get tails. It's a funny story. But it hits a very important topic we're going to look at today. What is God's plan for my life? I mean, does God actually have a plan for each of us? Does God have a destiny? Does God have a will? Is he guiding my big decisions? What about during the day? Does he care too much about my daily things? And what do I do when my plans and God's plans seem to be going to totally different directions? You see, that tension between my way and God's way, my will and God's will, is what we're going to look at today. This is a topic, God's will, that has been discussed and written about by theologians for hundreds upon hundreds of years. But at the bottom of all the discussion is a very personal question. How much do I trust God with my life? How much do I trust God with my future? How much do I trust God with my day and my moments? Is God's voice prompting me? Is it something that guides me? Is it something that guides you during your day? Let's be honest. Ask yourself, am I living God's plan? Have I considered his plan? Or am I on my own? It's not a small question, and it's one we can look over every day. Overlook it. I mean, if you're like me, you get so busy with the day and the calendar and the meetings, or this activity, or that, or just going throughout our life. If you're like me, how often do you stop and slow down and say, God, what do you want today? What do you want in this moment? What do you want during this time here at work? What do you want for my family? God, what do you want for this business and this deal, or this relationship that's new or older, or this decision? God, what is your way? And what about those plans that each of us have already made? I mean, have we ever paused and asked God about some of the decisions that we made along the way? Sometimes we forget to ask God. And there are other times we know what God would want, but we choose our way instead. What we're going to be looking at today is navigating the tension between God's way and my way. And few books of the Bible, few voices in the Bible elevate this topic like James, which we've been studying the past weeks. And if you're new, if you're just joining us here, then you're going to be like, I haven't been here for this series. It's okay. God has something for you today. If you're here or you're listening, the Spirit of God has something for you today. James is going to cut through all the noise and calendar and busyness of our lives and go straight to a Spirit-led truth that calls us out of my self-made living and into a fully surrendered life to God. James 4, verse 13. He says this, look here, you who say, today or tomorrow, we're going to go to this certain town. We'll stay there a year. We'll do business. We'll make a profit. James starts this section by saying, look here. The words here in the Greek are an attention-grabbing statement only found one other place in the Bible. It's urgent. It's a wake-up call. It's almost like James is clapping this morning. Church, look here. Hey, lean in, get this. I might have lost you. You might be thinking about your day. Catch this. Look here. He wants to get a divine interruption in our already made plans with this verse and where he's going. Now, as soon as James starts talking about planning, hey, some of you say I'm going this way, or tomorrow I'm going there, or today I'm going to do this. It sounds like planning. It sounds like good living to some of you. And if your personality is one that loves calendars, to-do lists, and color-coded schedules, this can seem like James is like, oh no. He's talking about planning and how that's not a good thing. But that's not what James is doing. James is not saying that your planning is the problem. He's not rebuking strategy or preparation or wise stewardship. He's not calling out spreadsheet people. What he's doing here, he's calling out self-sufficient people. This isn't about having a plan for my life. This is James asking, who holds the pen that I'm asking to write this? It's about surrender. It's a heart issue, not a calendar issue. James is talking about the way that you and I see the future, the way we build our lives around our will, often without ever stopping to think or ask, God, what do you want from me? So when James says, hey, look here, you who say, today and tomorrow, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that for a while. Here's how I'm going to go be successful or make some money. He's not attacking preparation. He's interrupting the presumption that we know. The presumption that we know what tomorrow brings. The presumption that somehow I'm in control. That's what he's talking about. And then in 14, he says this. How do you know what your life will even be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while and then it's gone. And in the Greek, this word for mist or fog isn't like a heavy, dense fog that sticks around all morning. The word here is actually the kind as when you walk out on a cold Rocky Mountain day, morning, and you breathe that fog of breath. It's there and it's gone. It's delicate. It's fleeting. It shows up for a second. That's how James describes our lives. That's how fast our lives can change and how fragile our life really is. In the scope of eternity past and eternity future, we're not as big as we feel. We're a vapor. We're a blink. We're a breath. We're a mist. It's not just that life is short. It's that life is so fragile. How quickly life can change for us. How quickly one appointment can change how we see the future. How quickly one phone call can change everything. And some of you know these. You've had these meetings. You've had these phone calls. You've had these appointments. And you understand how much of our peace and joy and life seems like a mist. James, when he says these things though, he's not trying to bring you to a place of fear. Hey, you're only a mist. So, no, it's not fear. He's calling us to a reality. And the problem is that we forget these things because we like to believe, or we get to believe, that our life is secure and solid because our bodies are doing okay, maybe. Our schedules seem pretty good. Our plans are well thought through. Our calendars are full. Our accounts look stable. And slowly when you begin to put these things of life on top of each other, it begins to feel pretty solid. And what once you were just kind of stepping out on, you find yourself standing on in life. My plans, my accounts, my confidence, my strategies, my future. And this is what James says is a problem. It's not the planning that's arrogant. It's the presumption. The presumption that I know what's coming and that my plan is the right one and that I've got this under control. And compared to the eternity, the breath, the shortness, we don't know what tomorrow will bring. James says this, and if we're really honest, we don't know what tomorrow will bring, but God does. God's not a mist. God's not a fog. He is a rock. He is a firm foundation, strong enough for whatever tomorrow holds to hold you. So I have a choice between trusting my plan or God's plan. And when James raises this and I go, oh yes, I am a mist and God is secure, it should be easy to make the decision to step out on God's plan, but it's not, is it? Because we forget in the busyness. We forget how fragile life is. And I'll be honest, it's not fun to think about. It's not fun to think about just how little control I have. I kind of like how much control I think I have. But James steers us and he corrects our course and he says this in 15. He goes, instead, what you ought to say is this: if the Lord desires it, if the Lord wants me to, then I'll go live and do this or I'll do that. If God wills it, I'm there. If God decides it, if he desires it, I'll say yes. And this isn't just like a nice, polite phrase that you'd put on the bottom of your email or a spiritual conversation. Hey, if God wills it, I'll do it. This is a statement of faith. This is a statement of faith that says, my life is not my own. I have been purchased by the blood of Jesus. He laid down his life for me and I give him my life right back. My future is in God's hands. I surrender. And God, if you ask me to go this way or that way, whatever you ask of me, the answer is yes. My life is surrendered. This kind of mindset doesn't cancel out planning or vision or preparation. It doesn't ignore wisdom. It doesn't ignore stewardship, but it does place all that under the understanding of God's will. It's the heart of somebody who says, I believe that God's plan for my life is better than the one that I've drafted for myself. And I'm willing to surrender what's in my hands to take hold of his. And maybe you've known someone like this. Maybe you've known someone who has genuine open hands in their life, who has a heart that's ready to respond to God. Or you know someone who says, yeah, and then I felt God say to do this, and so I did it. And you're like, wow. Or God told us to move here, or God did this. I'm going to tell you about a guy like this in my life. His name was Steve White, and he's no longer with us anymore. He's a dear friend of mine, and he was a pretty unique guy. But I got to call him Uncle Steve. He was a brilliant businessman. He had goals. He had tragedies and strategies combined, I guess. So that's how they usually go. He had strategies. He had plans for about everything. And he rose to the top of his industry, and I mean to the top national level. But he also had a very deep conviction, one that those who knew him recognized immediately. And he used to say things that would leave a mark on me and others around it. He would say, if someone crosses my path during my day, I'm going to assume and believe that God arranged for that to happen for a reason. And it wasn't just a catchphrase. It's easy to say that and then just kind of walk through a crowd or walk past a moment. Uncle Steve believed that his time was God's time. Uncle Steve believed that interruptions were actually invitations. He walked through life with an expectation that God was up to something in every conversation, in every moment. He was listening and looking for what God would have in that moment. And because of Steve's focus on this, countless lives were changed in conversation with him. He got to tell more people about Jesus in the strangest places. He'd be out camping and somebody in the neighboring camping area would walk over and for 2 hours are at his fire and someday now they will meet Steve again in heaven because of what God did in that moment. Eternal experiences materialized in ordinary moments because Steve had faith that God was in those. People around him were changed because Steve in his soul believed that his time was God's time and that every conversation was a divine moment. And he would be the first to say, if he was here, listen, I don't know what today holds. I don't even know what tomorrow's gonna bring, but whatever it is, and whoever God brings my way, I'm gonna start right there. And that's the kind of faith that James is describing. It's not anti-strategy. It's not anti-planning. It's asking the question, where is your faith actually at? Is my faith in my plan, in my accounts, in my calendar, in the things that I think I have in control? Or is my faith truly in God's plan? And have I surrendered mine to him? Is my time actually even mine? Or do I begin to see that it's his? And I'm on this planet for a limited amount of time where everything, I can't take anything with me from this, but souls last forever. And I'm on this planet in my life to tell other souls about the power of Jesus, that they may know him for eternity. James is inviting us to shift our lives from a self-assured living to a God-directed obedience. And that shift changes everything. James is challenging us to rethink how we see our lives. Am I going to plot my course to make something of myself? And if we're really honest, if you're really honest, we can admit that our plans are about accumulation. That my plans on my calendar are to get me more of something. Whether it's long-term goals for my investments in business and deals, whether it's family, and whether it's whatever it is, money, success, relationships, and career, it's the children, the recreation, the reputation, social media. The truth is we all have our something that we're looking to get more of, and our calendars reflect that. Open up your calendar and what you're spending your money on to somebody, and they'll know what your priority is. And Jesus says something about this. He says, what good is it to gain the whole world, to gain everything you plan about, and yet lose your soul? And that's what James is warning us about. What good is it to spend our life chasing my own plan and miss out on the divine plan that God has for me? Because I'm so consumed with what I'm chasing after. Orchard, hear me on this. Every single one of us, every one of us was created on purpose, for a purpose. God didn't just make you, he called you. And he gave you a completely unique blend of strengths and experiences and gifts and pains and personality and perspective and spiritual journey. I mean, listening to Gavin's testimony, the truth of the story in between those lines, Gavin's been through a lot of life. His journey led him this morning to saying yes to God over there in the baptismal. Each of you has a journey and experience that led you to this place. God didn't just make you and have you go through all those things to live your own plan. You are who you are for a reason, because he has a calling on you. A calling he designed just for you, not for me, not for your spouse or someone else. Listen, you are who you are how you are, and you are placed where you are to have a divine impact that only you can have. I can't have the impact on the people you can. I never will be able to. God has deployed you, not employed you. He's deployed you somewhere with who you're around and how you are to step into his calling, to give your time to him, and to see revival come around you. James is waving a flag here. Don't get caught up so much in your own plans that we miss the opportunities that God is placing right in front of us. Because the opportunities are there. They're there. Sometimes they're small. Deciding to come here this morning was an opportunity. Sometimes they're small. Sometimes they're surprising. Sometimes they're huge. But they're always there in the next moment, every day. And I can get so caught up and so distracted by notifications and calendars that I miss in the moment what he's calling me to. So the question for myself, the question for you, am I listening? Do I make room in my life to listen for God? Am I slowing down to hear the whisper of his spirit, the prompt and the urge, before I charge ahead with my best intentions and plans? And sometimes we get so busy doing life that we forget to listen to the author of life, who has a calling on you. And I'll be honest, this sermon could end right there. And maybe you're hoping it is, but it's not. James has one more verse on here that's explosive, and I'll guarantee you this, you've never heard a sermon on this verse before, most likely. James 4:17. Remember, it is sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. I wish the pastor would have ended it. I really do. I wish he'd ended it about 10 seconds ago. This verse hits real hard. Theologians call this the sin of omission, the sin of not doing something. It's the sin of knowing what's right, yet choosing not to do it. And what is it? I'll tell you this. It's a really quiet, private rebellion. It's not loud. You don't read scandals about the sin of omission. It doesn't make any headlines. Nobody falls from their position and has to come clean because of a sin of omission. It's passive disobedience. And I believe, as I was having a conversation with someone earlier, they said, man, I know the things I do wrong. And I can get kind of prideful by how I avoid them and say, no, I bet 90% of the sin in my life is not doing what I know I should and what God's calling me to. This is a heavy one. James says there's people who claim to follow God and maybe know what God desires of them, and they don't take action. This isn't a rebellion through action, it's rebellion through inaction. And throughout your day, we'll all have opportunities, big, small, to love God and love people, to speak out in life, to give generously, to love others, to invite people in. And oftentimes these are nudges of the Holy Spirit prompting us. And every time you get that nudge, that opening in the conversation, that chance to step out and give, or that chance to invite, we have the opportunity to step into it or kind of just stay where we are, to speak up or just to stay silent, to step out and love tangibly, or what we've learned in life is if I do nothing for just 3 to 5 seconds and wait, the moment an opportunity will pass me by. And I didn't have to do it. That was a close one. I almost had to have an awkward conversation about inviting someone to church, but I knew if I waited long enough, it would just kind of pass me by. See, if I hear God's prompt and I see the moment and I do nothing, James says it's not just a missed moment. He calls it sin. And it's so private. No one else knows these are going on. No one else can see this. It's just me and my private faith hearing or feeling the nudge of God or knowing that this is what I should say or do. And just choosing, if we're honest, to stay comfortable. Hebrews 3:15 says, today if you hear God's voice, do not harden your heart. You see, my heart becomes hardened to my Creator and my Savior when I feel those nudges and those prompts, but instead, I stick to my comfort. When God calls me to step out in faith, delayed obedience is disobedience. And it's a hard truth. I get it. And most of us haven't thought through, hey, not doing something being a sin. We don't tend to confess those moments, do we? We don't. During communion, as we end, we're going to have a moment to confess those, to ask God's forgiveness and His grace, holding the blood and the body of Jesus in His forgiveness and saying, forgive me for the times where I knew what I should have done and I just let it pass. You see, we don't consider inaction as rebellion, but James does. Because God's plan isn't just about seeing or believing. God's plan is about risking and doing. It's about faith in action, James has taught us. He's taught over and over about faith and acting upon it. And we've talked, it's not just about believing in Jesus. It's about following Jesus. And following Jesus means when He starts walking and says, follow me, you actually do it. The kingdom of God is not built on good Christian intentions. Jesus didn't save us with good intentions. He acted, He moved, and He gave. And there's a powerful, beautiful side to this warning. Because God, listen, So much of Christianity, people assume it is like, oh, man, it's just guilt about what I'm doing. Oh, great, I went to church and now I have to feel guilty about what I'm not doing. This is awesome. This is the Christianity I thought it would be. This pastor found the new way to give me more guilt. You see, there's a beauty and a power to this. Because following Jesus isn't about, just the guilt and the burden of doing the right thing or the not doing the wrong. There is something in this. Because God doesn't just call you to avoid sin. He calls us to partner with him in obedience. When we say yes to what God is prompting us, big or small, we don't just avoid sin. We step in to a life of purpose. We join God in his redemptive work here on this earth. When you choose to say yes in a conversation, you become the mouthpiece of God to that person. When you choose to give to someone or to love someone in need, you become the tangible hands of Jesus loving those people. You join him, you partner with him, a living part of what he's doing. And I'll say this, you were created for the joy of obeying him. Not the duty of it. Oh, the joy of partnering with God to see the world come to salvation and redemption, to see your coworkers and families as their hearts open up and we see transformation. You're called to be a part of that. And there's joy in obedience. It's beautiful. God calls us to partner in the miracle. And the miracle is God doing what only he can do and you doing what you can do. And sometimes that's just stepping out and inviting somebody. And he takes it from there, and the miracle is them finding his son, Jesus. You do what he calls you to do, and watch him do what only he can do. And I'm about to tell a story to end with this, and I've told this story before, kind of didn't want to tell it again, and Jesus made it very clear. This is for today. And it's back when I was a much younger person, and I was in college. I was a ministry student in Bible college before I got politely asked never to come back again. And it's a much different story for a different time. They scheduled a revival at my Baptist university. And at this scheduled revival, which I didn't know much about scheduling revivals, but I was interested in revival. A revival is where a spiritual awakening happens and breaks out, and no human can take credit for it. It's so great, it's so grand, and people are so transformed, and it gets so big that nobody goes, yeah, that was my preaching, or that was my band. No, none of that. So they scheduled it, and I was like, well, I'm interested to see what this revival looks like. And it was called the Asbury Seminary Revival. That's what they called it in looking back in time. At the time, I didn't know this. It was just a revival from the seminary that came to town. And it wasn't hyped. And so we got there, and it was in this long Baptist chapel. And maybe you've seen these. It's at a university, so it's extra long. And there's light coming in through some stained glass, and it gets darker in the evening. And so, but you can imagine with me some of those old chapels you've been a part of with the imagery and the pews padded and all that goes with it. And on stage was one microphone on a stand. Now, it was time to start. We were packed in there. I was in the very, very back of this seminary, of this chapel, this Baptist chapel. Long chapel, very back row Baptist. I'm on this row, and I'm with my fraternity brothers. That's all you need to know. And this man gets up in front of us, and he gets up on this microphone, and he says, I'm from Asbury Seminary, and our entire student body is praying for you tonight. We were praying that the Spirit would move. And he turned and walked off. And just to give you, it was an empty stage. Suddenly, what was supposed to be happening, we all know what happens, right? There's supposed to be music. Someone has to say something for God to move, right? And suddenly we're all kind of just standing there, and it got real quiet because he walked off, and I was back here in the back row, and I'm like, no band? Don't they know they need worship? Like, there's got to be a lead guitar solo. It's Baptist. There has to be a third chorus of a hymn, and nobody in a suit with a handkerchief is going to preach and pound the pulpit. Nothing? What kind of revival is this? He said those few sentences, walked off, and then guess what we did? we sat in silence. For a long time. I mean, it got awkward because nothing's happening. Every single college student and their ministry student, all these people, we're wondering, what are we doing here? And while we're sitting there in this awkward silence, I hear something in my heart that to this day just gets me, and this story gets me. Because I was sitting there and I heard God say, as clear as I could, so clear I thought everyone could hear it. He said, stand up, son. Walk down front. And I remember I was so shocked by it. I looked around to see who else flinched from this. No one. We're just sitting there. Stand up. I'm with you. And now the awkward silence has turned to pure panic for me. And this holy, weight, just the presence of God, and I start sweating. And I start having this conversation in my heart. What do you want me to do? Go up to the stage and speak. What do I say? I'll tell you when you get there. Now, hold on. I don't know if you ever spoke in public, and if you did, you're probably a little bit prepared, right? Imagine me just calling your name. In fact, we're gonna do something right now. I'm gonna pick one of you. I'm just kidding. You felt a little bit of what I did, didn't you? For a second there, you thought, how far is it to the exit? Literally, I'll tell you when you get there. Gosh, it was when I was 18, and I still can't get away from the emotion of this moment. It's so, I'm sitting there with my fraternity brothers, and I'm just wrestling in my heart. And here's what I did. It just got undeniable. And I wanted to be a son of the Father who would say yes no matter what it is, no matter how foolish I looked. And so I remember I sat there and I was like, I don't want to go up there. I don't want to do this. My son, you don't have to, but I'm calling you. And I'll never forget. Now at this point, no one else knows I'm standing except for my frat brothers. And they're like, self, what are you doing? And I didn't say a word because I didn't know what I was doing. It's a very good question they asked me. I just start walking down the aisle. It was carpeted floors. They're so quiet in those Baptist churches. I get to the middle aisle, and now I'm in the aisle, and I just see the microphone on the stage in front of me, but it's 10 miles away, and it is full of people. I just start walking. And I have no idea what I'm about to say, and every time I would pass a row, no one knows I'm walking until I get even with them, and then and I can just feel every eye upon me. And I walk in complete silence, and it seemed like it was a 20-minute walk. I don't know how long it was, but it was the most silent, long walk, and I made my way up to the front, having no idea what to do. And I went up on that tall pulpit where there was one microphone on a stand. And I remember like it was yesterday. I remember like it was yesterday, staring ahead at that microphone, and all those people. And I just stepped forward. And he gave me the words. And I started to speak. I didn't speak long. And what happened next can't be described. It can only be experienced. Because I spoke, and I felt God's presence, and I walked to the front row, and I just started weeping. And for 3 to 4 hours, past that moment, students would walk up front and get on the same mic and confess the sins of their life. And I remember confessions that you don't say to your closest accountability partner, let alone a room full of hundreds of students, and just weeping in repentance and conviction, an uncontrollable move of God with no band and no preacher. And I experienced something that night that forever changed me. Revival fell. Revival happened. It changed me then, and I'm still changed, because this microphone I speak through every week is nothing compared to that microphone and that memory. And I thank God that he took a risk to invite me in that moment. And I'm so grateful that 18-year-old me said yes, because it's given me faith throughout my life. And Orchard, here's the whole point of it. And band, you can come on out. Spiritual awakening, spiritual awakening is revival. And many of you have a prayer for spiritual awakening in yourself, in your family, in your work, or in our region, for revival within us. Orchard, what if revival is on the other side of obedience? What if on the other side of sweaty palms and awkward moments is revival? What if on the other side of uncomfortable conversations and awkward invites is a risk of faith? What if for you, what if for your family, your work, what if for us, what if for our region, revival is on the other side of your yes? What if it's your yes? God is calling some of you to stand up. He's calling some of you to stand up and to speak out and to reach out and to risk. What happens if we all stay seated? What happens if we all stay in our seats? That's too much. It's just too awkward. But what if your yes sparks a revival in someone's life? What if your yes is what it takes for God to move in their heart, for them to come to know Jesus? What if your yes sparks a revival for this region? You may have felt him nudging you. You may have felt him speaking to you about something, to do something. And listen, I get it. The fear is real. The cost is high. Our reputations and our pride, they're hard to overcome. But from a heavenly perspective, someday from heaven, your perspective will be perfect. And you'll look back down on the mist of your life, the fog it talks about. And you're like, man, I lived all those things for my own comfort, afraid to step out. And now I look up and see it was so small and fleeting. And I was so afraid to step out. But in light of eternity, it's so short. And in this life, there's nothing you accumulate you can take with you. Nothing. The thing that will last is the souls of other people. And for God, he's asking some of us to say yes in obedience, to speak and reach out so that their eternity can be transformed. Maybe my mist can be spent for other people's eternities. In heaven's perspective, every awkward moment you ever have here on earth, every tear, every strange conversation, every invite, every gift given in love, everything you step out and say yes to, it's worth it. It's eternally worth it. If awkwardness is the price for someone to know Jesus, so be it. If loss of some reputation is the price for someone to come to know eternity in heaven, so be it. Because we're not here to build our own plans. we are here to declare Jesus through our words, through our works, through our yeses. What if revival is on the other side of your yes? And James says, don't just sit there. You can really easily just let the moment pass. Where is God asking you to step out in faith? Into the water of baptism, into a conversation. What is it? Maybe you don't know yet, but James is clear. We are called to live the verse he said, if the Lord wills it, we'll go. If the Lord desires it, I'm gonna go. I'll speak, I'll act, I'll say yes. So for us, our prayer today is this, because we're gonna do some worship. That's a response. We're gonna have communion to ask God to forgive us of our sins of omission. But for your heart in worship to pray this: my life is yours. Forgive me for for just having my own plans during my mist, my small life. Lord, you want to make it yours and do what only you can do through it. Father, forgive me and use me, prompt me, guide me, empower me, give me courage, and may we see revival come. We're a church who is here to see thousands upon thousands come to know Jesus. It's gonna take all of us saying yes. So what good have you been delaying? It is time to make room for Jesus. Make room in our day, make room in our hearts, make room in our plans for God to move. Church, it is time for you to respond. This is your time. Communion, worship, come forward. You want prayer? You want to pray? Make room in your heart for God.